Good evening, everybody. This is Bob Mader with the National Association of Flight Instructors. Glad to have you with us. Before we get started, a bit of housekeeping at our webinars for those of you that haven't joined us before. I'd like to ask that you mute your computer or your cell phones or whatever you're using. If you're want to ask any questions or anything, you can unmute at that time. The reason being is we get a lot of background noise and so on. Right now I have everybody muted, but I can unmute everybody. With that bit of housekeeping out of the way, I'd like to welcome Joe Daniele. I think I got that pronunciation right, Joe.
Yes, you do.
Great. He's a senior systems engineer engaged with in operational support for Lockheed Martin Flight Service. Before joining Lockheed Martin in 2005, he supported the Department of Defense and the FAA on many defense and ATC programs. Joe has 30 years of experience, primarily in DoD and FAA air traffic control in the national and international airspace domains. He's a graduate of DeVry University, a Master of Engineering candidate at Embry-Riddle, and an active pilot. Anything you want to add to that, Joe? That's a pretty healthy resume.
No, that just means I'm old.
Well, welcome. Glad you could join us tonight.
I'm glad to be here, Bob.
All righty. I'm going to go ahead and send the screen your way and turn it over to you.
Okay.
There you are, sir.
All right. Let me know when you can see the slideshow.
We can see it in edit mode. We can see it in edit mode, so make sure you're on the, there we go.
All right.
There we go.
Okay, can you see anything other than the slides?
I think I see your note.
Go ahead.
I think we see your notes page, Joe. You may be on the wrong monitor there.
I only have one monitor. You don't see better briefings there for flights?
Yes, we do, but I also see slide 1 of 55.
Oh, it's interesting.
Bear with us one moment, folks. No, still have the same thing.
Okay, worked earlier. I'm not sure why it's not working now. Try one more time.
There we go.
Okay, can you, okay, all right. Now, can you see anything other than the Better Briefings, Safer Flights slide?
Nope. Your taskbar at the bottom, but that's it.
Okay.
You're in business.
I'm going to leave that. All right, so, all right, how about now? Is the taskbar gone?
Taskbar is gone, and it looks great.
All right, great. Okay, so just a brief introduction. We're going to go over the Lockheed Martin Pilot Web, and there's so much to show with respect to the Pilot Web. And what I did was, okay, who am I presenting to? And it's a group of flight instructors. So what I want to do is just give you the basics of what new pilots need, or what would help them best get a briefing. With the new age of technology, I think technology helps us, and it also hurts us. Everybody thinks so. You know, you log into the Weather Channel, they got their weather, and they're good to go, or they're looking on a single website, and they just look at a front running through, and they think they got enough information. What I'm going to do is go over the Pilot Web and show you the enhancements we've made to modernize briefings. That's the URL, the website address, 1-800-WXbrief.com. You're all pilots, so we all know that that's the flight service telephone number. So we made the flight service telephone number the same number as our website address, easy to remember. We put this together in 2012, and we've been continually building on it. And there's two bullets here that I want you to focus on, and this is for your students more than anything else, that this is a legal FAA briefing. Everything that you do is recorded, not for our sake, but for your sake. And the information that you see is available, and what you do on that website is available to the specialists immediately. So if you file a flight plan or submit a briefing and you have a question about something, you could call flight service and they'll have all that information right there. They'll recognize your call sign, and they'll know exactly who you are, and you just say, hey, I just filed a flight plan, can you help me out? They bring it up and they've got it. And the other thing I wanted to mention, I forgot to mention at the beginning, if someone has a question, I really want it to be interactive. I know it's a little more difficult on a webinar, but please don't be shy to stop me as I'm talking. One of the key factors and reasons for logging into our site is because Lockheed Martin holds all of the VFR flight plans. So whether you're sending, when you send them in from DUATs, let's say, we get them, but we get them not until an hour prior to departure time. So when you or your students call in for a briefing or something, if it's outside of an hour, we don't have that information yet. We don't get the IFR flight plans at all when you file through DUATs. And when we do get your VFR flight plans, it's very limited. There's no route. There's no speed information. There's no pilot information. That's why specialists have to ask for all of this information. It's not because we just want to hear you guys talk. It's we don't have the info. That's why we built the pilot web. Whether you come in from our pilot web or an app vendor, and I'm going to get into that in a minute, we have all of your information immediately. If it's an IFR flight plan, we'll send it off to center. If it's a VFR flight plan, obviously we hold it. And for those of you familiar with traffic flow management, TFM, we send those flight plans, IFR flight plans, to them 17 hours ahead of time. A huge advantage for ATC when they start planning, the airspace. So a lot of reasons to log in on the pilot web. Everything's directly available to our flight services specialists, and we have all that information. I mentioned app vendors, and I'm going to just touch on this briefly. But what we've done is we've integrated with the marketplace. ForeFlight, Navigator, Avair. Everybody you see, all the companies you see up there are directly interfaced with Lockheed Martin Flight Service. So when you file a flight plan through them, it comes into us. If you do a briefing, the briefing comes from us. So it's an open interface for these vendors. It's free for them. We don't charge anything to do this. And it's just another way to get into Lockheed Martin and get the services, the benefits of our services. And you'll see on the right-hand side, position reporting information. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the Spider Tracks and the DeLormes and the Spots of the world. What we've done is we've worked agreements with these companies that they will send us position information if you give them permission to do so. And if you're on a VFR flight plan, an active VFR flight plan, we will, under the covers, we're not doing ATC, it's not flight following, it's not Big Brother looking after you. It's if you stop sending us position information, we'll start a search and rescue on that particular flight plan within minutes of not receiving a position report. So it's just a way of it's a safety enhancement, and we don't charge these companies anything else, and they don't charge you guys for this service. They obviously have their monthly fees and stuff like that, but there's the interface to Lockheed Martin for this service does not cost anything extra. All right. Okay. The reason we're here tonight is to talk about briefings and what we've dubbed as next generation briefings. The briefings we get today, or we used to get from any vendor, was a 50-page document that was just laden with text and hard to understand. And quite frankly, I mean, who wants to read 50 pages of a briefing? You could take a 25-mile flight and wind up with 60 pages of text. So what we've done is we've changed that. We've modernized what we show the pilot and give the pilot. All right. What I'm going to do is just show you how to get a briefing first. This is our basic layout of our website. Very easy to understand, but what you would do is you would log into obviously you have to have an account, you log in. You're going to click on Briefings and Flight Plans. And when you do that, it's going to bring up the flight plan mask, normal flight plan form that everybody is familiar with. And you'll see that I have things highlighted in red. The reason that's highlighted in red is to let you know that if you complete your aircraft profile, all of this information is brought in automatically. You don't have to take the time to enter all this information over and over again. One additional thing is, the only thing, it defaults to the current time date, and we have favorite flight plans. This is what I wanted to get to. We all seem to fly pretty much kind of regular routes. So we have the ability to save those as favorite flight plans. This is nothing new for many vendors, but you select one, Altoona, Pennsylvania, down to Macon, Georgia. We're going to use this today, and all you need to do from there on out is put in your current the time you want to depart. You'll notice that all the fields are populated now with literally one click. And as long as you have your flight plan, your aircraft information in recorded in your pilot profile, it'll come up. All right, so we enter in a departure time of, say, 1600. I'm on the East Coast now. We have the ability to give you several different types of briefings. We have an Outlook briefing. We have an abbreviated briefing. An Outlook briefing is for 6 hours and beyond. Abbreviated briefings are briefings that you get to pick and choose what you want to see. And a scheduled email briefing is exactly what it says. If you want a briefing for, say, 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, you just put in that time frame, tell me what you want, and then lo and behold, at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, you're going to have an email, a briefing sent to you via email. We can also give you area briefings. Just click on the area brief button next to the departure or destination, and it'll give you an area briefing just around that point. It doesn't give you the whole route. It just gives you just an area, like a 25-mile radius around that area. You notice we try to keep everything on the flight plan mask. We didn't want to have the pilots move away from this form. There are other services out there that make you go from page to page or screen to screen. And we did our best to try to keep everything condensed. So for the purpose of this demo, what we're going to do is click on a standard briefing. And when you click on the briefing, it's going to tell you that your briefing is being generated, and it gives you some warnings and some general information about the briefing. The bottom one being that, if you're flying outside the U.S., you need to check with foreign airspace for international data and things like that. Now, if you don't have your aircraft profile configured, we're going to warn you about that. You're going to see in the next few slides where we use aircraft performance to calculate times that it takes you to get from point A to point B. It helps with the NAV log and things like that. So if you don't have that information configured already, we're going to give you a warning. All right. This is what our briefing looks like. Right away you can look and you see that it's just not a data dump of text. We've laid it out in tabular format across the top. We tell you what those tabs mean and what they contain. You'll see that this is called our text pane, and you can see we're on the TFR tab, and you can see that there's a TFR there. That's our graphics pane over there, and it depicts the route of flight that you have. This one's from Nashville down to, I think, Lynchburg. You'll see a dotted line around the route. That gives you your corridor. We're required to give you all the information that's inside that corridor. And lastly, we give you what we call our summarization pane, and we'll get into this as we go on and through the briefing. But rather than having to read everything in the text box of the TFR, we extract information so the pilot can quickly and easily determine what's going on with that particular TFR, and we'll get into that in a little bit. We have the ability to change everything to plain text if you'd like. We have what we call our next-gen view. If you deselect this, then you're going to get a standard dump of textual information. And if you keep it in next-gen view, it gives you the ability to step through all of the different TFRs or whatever the conditions are, and you'll see that as we go along. Don't take it out of next-gen view. That's the easiest thing I can tell you. Gives you the route, just gives you a summary of the route across the top. You'll see that we have little yellow icons, and then some of them have no icon at all. A yellow icon is an indication that you haven't visited that particular tab. Once you visit a tab, that yellow icon goes away. It's kind of a warning, like, hey, you haven't seen this tab. You don't want to look at it, you don't look at it. But and we're not advocating that you don't. But that's up to you, obviously. And you'll notice that some have zeros next to them. This is a deficiency thing. If there's a zero inside a tab, it means there's no data there. So you don't have to bother looking into that tab. And we give you the ability to register for briefing updates. That's simply if you've put in a briefing, you want updates to this briefing, you subscribe to that, and we will send you, anytime there's a change, we will send you what has changed with respect to that briefing. And if you want, we can email it or you can print this briefing out. Graphics pane options. We have some different options here. I just wanted to quickly go over what we can do and how we show it. You'll see a nasty front moving through. That was a good day for a snapshot. But there's our corridor, like I said before. The little the dashed line around it is the corridor width, and that's all the information inside there is what's going to be returned in the briefing. We have the ability to pan and zoom. You can move around. You can zoom in, zoom out as much as you'd like. If you want to see what's behind you or what's in front of you, we can do that. We have the ability to change the maps, whether it's just a color map or a terrain map. We give you the ability, we show you, for this is a composite reflectivity chart. We give you the legend, so whatever you choose, you'll get the appropriate legend for it. We have the ability, we show you, and we allow you to pick and choose different types of imagery and layers that you can display. Different nav aids if you want, special use airspace, sectionals, that's an important one, airports and nav aids and things like that. So you can configure that display any way you'd like. And again, one-stop shopping. You don't have to leave this page to configure it. We can animate. You can see that the animate button is there. We can animate that the imagery for you. And we give you the ability to overlay additional types of weather. Okay, now, the bread and butter. This is really what we're here for. I just gave you a quick overview of what our briefing looks like. Automatic time analysis. For adverse conditions like TFRs, you see them across the top there, TFRs, airmets, SIGMETs, convective SIGMETs, CWAs, and severe weather. Rather than just give you what that airmet is, we're in the, if you notice, we're in the adverse conditions tab. Under airmet, we're in the low turbulence section. We've highlighted around that's the airmet on the left side in text, and on the right-hand side, it's drawn for you. So you don't have to figure out where that airmet is located. We draw it with respect to the route. We take this one step further. We tell you when you're going to enter that particular airmet, and we tell you when you're going to exit that airmet. And you'll notice that it's red. Red means that airmet is going to be active when you're planning to depart and when you're estimated to get to that point. If it were orange, it would be yellow. The highlighting up in that top box there would be yellow or orange, which means it's going to be active within an hour of your arrival time. And green means that airmet will not affect, it'll be active outside of an hour of you getting to that location. So not only do we timestamp it for you, we'll give you an indication of if it's hot, if it might be hot, or if it's not going to be a bother to you at all. And this is where I wanted to touch on the aircraft characteristics. If we don't have your aircraft characteristics, the times that we estimate and calculate into these particular areas become less accurate, because now all we're doing is basing it on winds. And that's good, but we also take into account your aircraft profile, your climb rates and your cruise speeds. So we take that into account. So it just becomes a more accurate calculation. So if anything, tell your students, and yourselves, get in there and configure your aircraft before you start submitting briefings and things like that.
So, Joe, a quick question about configuring aircraft. If I type in, say, it's a 172 slant uniform, as if you just give you that information, you don't know anything about the performance. I have to get everything out of the. Do I have to get everything out of the
POH?
The POH, out of the flight manual. Okay.
Yep. So I mean, and we made a conscious decision to do that, Bob. We had actually some and just so you know, this website is designed by pilots, and we had the choice of either picking standard stock data for aircraft profiles or let the pilots put in how their aircraft perform, and we went with the latter. It's an extra 5 minutes of configuring, but it's a much more accurate profile. So
okay, and I asked that because they're certainly the stock aircraft, the Pipers, the Cessnas, the Beechcraft, and so on are out there, but obviously there's a lot of experimentals. The light sport world keeps coming up with things that are new and exciting and different. So
right.
That's why I brought that up.
Yep. And it was a good question. METAR summarization. So when you call flight service, and I'm betting at least, you guys have called flight service at least once. I'm sure it's more. But when you're on a route and when you put in a flight plan, they don't read off every METAR station. What they do is they summarize along the route. And that's exactly what we've done. We've translated what's inside a specialist's brain and put it into software for you guys, for pilots to access. You'll see that what we've done is, based on a grouping of stations, we've summarized that up top. And we give you one or two sentences to read instead of having to sift through, say, 20 different stations. So rather than reading through and trying to discern 20 stations, we give it to you in a couple sentences, some low IFR and IFR through Cherokee County, so on and so on. And what we do is we give you the lowest condition in that summary. And you'll see you have low IFR conditions at 100 feet, quarter-mile visibility. So we're not trying to take the thinking out of briefings. What we're trying to do is make it easier for you guys and for me and all pilots, make it easier to assimilate the information, to digest it. Rather than reading through 20 stations, I have now a summary from this point to that point. And we do that all the way down the route. So we give you maybe 3-4 sentences to read for your route. And then on the bottom, you'll see a legend there, and it shows you the color coding, marginal, VFR, low IFR, IFR, things like that. Standard stuff. Now, TAFs are, METARs are good, but they're current observations. TAFs are much better because it gives you a forecast of what those conditions are downstream. The hardest part for me, anyway, is trying to figure out which forecast time period I'm going to be in as I'm going along my route. Well, what we've done is we've gone in and we've figured out, based on your aircraft performance and the winds aloft, when you're going to pass these stations. For example, I'm going to pass Palmdale at 6:49 Zulu. I'm going to pass Ontario at 07Z. Now you notice as we highlight these particular stations, we highlight the particular forecast time period that you're going to be in. So I don't have to sit there and try to figure out which one I need to be paying attention to. So at Palmdale, when I pass Palmdale, it's going to be VFR. When I pass Ontario, it's going to be marginal VFR. And when I pass Riverside, it's going to be marginal. And you say, why is there a plus 55 there? Specialists, if you remember, if you think back when you're talking to a specialist, if you're going to be in a different condition in a different time period, forecast time period, they're required to give you that condition if you're within an hour of that different condition. So as I'm entering Riverside, if I'm scheduled to get there at 7:05, you'll see that will change. So if I'm late getting into Riverside, I could be in IFR conditions. Now, can you see where that arrow is pointing to? That's Riverside. You'll see that the center of that icon is blue, indicating marginal. That's when I get there, it's going to be marginal. But if I'm late, like the chart shows on the left, it's going to be IFR, so I color code the right-hand side red. So these icons take on 3 different meanings. And you'll see that on the bottom there, you'll see that the left side highlighting is if I get there early, what the condition could be. The center of that icon is what the condition is going to be there on my passing time. And the right side is the condition of what it'll be if I'm up to an hour late. Something's all blue like you see right next to Riverside. It means if I'm there an hour early, it's going to be marginal. If I get there on time, it's marginal. If I get there late, it's going to be marginal. No big deal. So, again, a picture is worth 1,000 words. I think you get the idea that what we're trying to do, or what we've done, is we've taken a text-based briefing and we're translating it and giving you as much graphical information as possible. You can easily print that page off, and now you have exactly what your conditions are along your route of flight as you traverse from your departure down to your destination. Okay. Another thing that we really got excited about was something called Smart Plain Text Translation. Yeah, I can translate this into plain text. All I got to do is click that button up there. But translating fixed radials into plain English doesn't mean anything to me, especially if I'm flying in an area that I'm not familiar with. I mean, I just don't know where these particular VORs are and things like that. So I draw it, right? There's your convective segment. It's right on your route. You know, you have a good idea of where that is. What we've done is we've taken that convective segment. You've got 9 lines of text there. The only thing that's important from a conditions perspective is right there. So we've taken all of that information and we've done 2 things. One, we draw it with respect to your route of flight, so you don't have to sit there and map out where these fixed radials are located. And we tell you what that condition is in plain English right up top in that summary box. So rather than try to decipher everything that's in the lower box, we give you a picture, we tell you when you're going to enter that particular convective segment, and we just give you a summary. There's your summary box of what that condition is. When I give my presentations in front of audiences, this is my quiz question. What's unique about this particular route of flight? And if anybody knows, jump in. So when I say what's unique about this, or what's particular or peculiar about this particular route of flight, with respect to an area forecast, I'm going from Lynchburg down to Mount Airy. I used to take this flight all the time with my son. He used to go to Blacksburg. So we used to go either out of Blacksburg or down to Lynchburg. But what's unique about this flight is I'm starting in the northeast area for area forecasts, and I end up in the southeast area. So I'm hitting 2 forecast areas. I don't know about you, but I don't need to know anything about the conditions in Pennsylvania, New York, Maine, Vermont, and I certainly don't need to know the conditions down in Georgia and Florida for this particular flight. So what we've done is we've given you the area forecast for just the areas or states that you penetrate. I'm leaving Virginia. The National Weather Service gives us those 4 or 5 states as one entity, so I can't break it up any more than that. And then if I hit that little button over there to say, take me to my next area forecast, it's going to take me down to North Carolina, and that's it. Now, if you want to see the entire northeast area forecast and the entire southeast area forecast, go back up to the top and click the next gen and take it off. And then you'll see everything. But what we're doing here is giving you the Virginia area and the North Carolina area, and that's it. A lot less information to digest.
You realize you're taking, for me as a flight instructor, you're taking away half my fun.
Yeah. But I thought this is a powerful tool, right? I mean, why do I need to have to sift through 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different areas when I'm trying to get a briefing? It just makes no sense.
I have to agree with that with you, Joe.
Yeah. All right, so winds aloft. Okay, notice that, as you can tell, 95 is my preferred altitude. That's what I fly. And you'll notice that I'm in a PA-28, right? So just keep that in mind. How many people need to know, you're flying a Piper, how many people need to know what the winds are at 54,000 feet? I just don't think it's necessary, right? So what we've done is we've given the pilot the ability to filter out all the extraneous altitudes. My filed altitude is 95. So I click this button on the left that says altitudes within 4,000 feet. So I go 2,000 feet below, and I go 2,000 feet, 4,000 feet below. I go 2,000 feet, 4,000 feet above. And I give you those, and I interpolate or calculate those winds aloft. You say, why do I have 6, 9, and 12? Well, they come for free. They're standard altitudes. We give them to you. The point I'm trying to make here is, if I'm flying at 9,500 feet, I absolutely, unequivocally don't need any information above 13.5 at all. So why do I need to see it? So we've given you guys the ability to filter out those altitudes. Just deselect it, and then you can see altitudes out to 54,000 feet. Obstruction NOTAMs. This is an interesting one. I'm from the East, and there's a lot of obstructions on the East Coast, hands down. There's a lot of obstructions that are absolutely meaningless to me that I have to decipher and worry about just because it's in my briefing, and now I have to sit there and figure out based on the altitude I'm flying and the elevation of that obstruction. There's a lot of information there to digest. So what we've done is we've color-coded the obstructions based on your altitude. So if you're flying at an altitude and the obstruction is within 500 feet of your altitude, we will color code those items or those obstructions red. If it's within 1,000 feet of your filed altitude, we color code them orange. And if it's outside of 1,000 feet, we color code it black. So right away, you have an incredible visual there. Situational awareness. I mean, now you know which obstacles or obstructions you need to be cognizant of flying. And if you're flying greater than 1,000 feet off your altitude, your filed altitude, you probably should be not flying. But anyway, we also give you the ability to exclude obstructions beyond 1,000 feet of your filed altitude. So if I select this box here, all of the obstructions in black will go away. And that will leave me literally with 3 obstructions that I need to be concerned with. Gives me 2 of them that are within 500 feet, and then a 3rd one that's within 1,000 feet. Again, I can now take these, 20 obstructions, filter out the ones I don't need. I can absolutely mark my sectional or whatever device you're using to say, these are the ones, this is where I need to be cautious. Same thing with NAV NOTAMs. There's a lot of NAV NOTAMs all over the place. For here, I picked Monterey, California, down to San Diego. Relatively short flight. I mean, and there's a ton of NAV NOTAMs here, and you'll see that we've identified them or coded them with standard symbology for what they are. And in the upper left, you'll notice that we give you checkboxes here. You can now select and deselect what you want to see. If you don't want to see the DME or NOTAMs, you can deselect them and it'll go away. ILS NOTAMs. I mean, I don't need ILS NOTAMs along my route of flight at all. And you'll notice we're in the en route phase. So I really don't need ILS NOTAMs along my route. Maybe I'm not particularly interested in NDB NOTAMs. So once you start selecting or deselecting the items, that list becomes smaller and smaller. Again, the less information you have to digest, the more information you will retain. And what we do is we just color code things based on the condition of the service, all right? If it's out of service or something like that, all right? Okay, PIREPs. I tell my standard shtick is the best thing one pilot can give to another pilot besides his airplane is a PIREP. These are one of the most powerful things that pilots can give other pilots. And what we do is we graph them. It's very easy to see and plain to see where those PIREPs are located with respect to my route of flight. And you'll notice we have PIREPs on the outside of my corridor. We did that just for situational awareness. Right now, there's not a lot of PIREPs in the system, so we didn't feel we would be cluttering up the system. However, with some new services actually that we've employed where we can actually put in PIREPs while you're airborne, our PIREP count has gone up significantly. But anyway, We give you the PIREP. Right now I have it in plain text. And then we highlight it. This is the second of 4 PIREPs, and that's indicated with the yellow box around it. And the other thing I wanted to point out was urgent PIREPs. We have an urgent PIREP right over Oakland right there, and it's color-coded red. Anything that's urgent, we highlight in red, so it kind of jumps out at you like, I got to be cognizant of that particular PIREP. But again, not knowing that area and not knowing where my nav aids are or even airports in that area, having them graphically depicted makes it much easier for me to identify where I need to pay attention. Okay, this is something else pilots really wanted. I mean, we've got a lot of requests for this. We call it a Delta briefing. It's an engineering thing. I mean, I'm an engineer. I have to take part of the blame, and it just means the difference. If you file or if you submit a standard briefing, say at 12 o'clock, and you go in a couple hours later, if there are any conditions, any adverse conditions that have popped up since your last briefing, since the last standard briefing, we will give you a tab that clearly identifies all of the new adverse conditions that have popped up along your route of flight. Airmets, convective sigmets, TFRs, things like that. It's not to preclude you having to go through all of the other tabs and look at things, but this is a one-stop shop of all of the new adverse conditions since your last full briefing. The caveat is you have to do it within 6 hours of your standard briefing. So if you do a briefing at 12 o'clock and then you do another one at, say, 6:15, you're going to get a whole new briefing. Everything else in there is all new, but you will not get a Delta tab because it's a brand new briefing for you. Okay. UAS operating areas. This is something that is just becoming so prevalent nowadays. What we've done is we've been very proactive with the pilot web and for pilots. We have the ability now to display UAS or what we call UAS operating areas where drones are going to be operating. And what we've done is we treat them like an adverse condition. We don't call it an adverse condition because it's not the prescribed thing from the FAA in their rules and in their orders. But we treat it like an adverse condition because, quite frankly, a drone flying in my airspace is an adverse condition. So we treat it like an adverse condition, and we will identify those that will intersect your route of flight. Our pilot web, by the way, has the ability to enter these UAS operating areas if you're a UAS operator. Just a side bit there. But anyway, you'll see that we have just one of them, the third one of 7, that based on our departure time, winds aloft, aircraft characteristics, I'm scheduled to get to that particular drone or that area at 2:58 Zulu. And I'm expected to get past it by 3:11 Zulu, but it's orange. That means it's not going to be, it will be active within the hour, but it won't be active exactly when I'm there. So you make the decision, do I go, do I not go, do I alter my route a little bit, things like that.
Now, Joe, I noticed, could you go back to that one for just a moment? I noticed that the UAS area appears to be the corridor. Is that, and it looks like those 2 lines are saying that's when you're going to pass next to it in this case, correct?
Correct. So what we do, if it happened to pass, like if you take the UAS to the left, the long vertical oblong one, the racetrack looking one, the intersection times would be where the route physically crosses or enters the operating area, and when it exits the operating area. Since the one that's highlighted is not touching the route, but it's within the corridor. Remember I said anything inside the corridor has to be displayed or presented to the pilot in a briefing, right? We're calculating that you're going to pass it perpendicular to that line at 258. So even though it doesn't intersect your route, it intersects the corridor in which you are flying. One of the rules that we have to abide by that says anything within 25 miles either side of the center line has to be presented to the pilot. Does that answer your question or address what you were getting at?
Absolutely. Perfect answer. Thanks.
Good. And this is just the ability to view the different operating areas that we have data for, like the CONUS. If you clicked on Hawaii, it would bring you to Hawaii and show you all of the UAS operating areas. Alaska, we added 2 more, Guam, and there was another one, it slips my mind, but the FAA asked us to enhance this a little bit by adding a couple other areas, and we did. But this, at a glance, at a high level, just gives you an overview of the operating areas, UAS operating areas that are in the system. This also will display airspace NOTAMs as well. So this is going to get incredibly busy in the next couple of years. My prediction is this will be a purple map at some point. So just another feature that we have on the web. One of the other primary things I wanted to talk about tonight for students' sake, and I know we're getting close to that hour time there, is a NAV log. We've taken a lot of time and we've invested a lot of time and effort into navigation logs. We want it to be right, obviously. So we have a NAV log. We're going to go from Nashua down to Lynchburg. We fill in the appropriate information. We hit the button down there that says NAV log. Again, everything is on this flight plan form. You don't have to leave this flight plan form to do anything. That'll pop up and it'll ask you, what do you want to see in your NAV log? Now, if there's something that you're not particularly interested in, you don't have to view it. Just deselect it and we won't include it in the NAV log. Hit the continue button and this is what the output looks like. Standard NAV log. Did our best to get as much information without cluttering up, a NAV log. And we do basic things like we give you the aircraft ID, we give you your estimated time of departure there, your departure point, your destination, your route, and your proposed or filed altitude. We tell you what the distance is, we tell you how long it's going to take, and we tell you the fuel consumption. And again, I'm going to go back to your aircraft profile. If you don't give us your aircraft profile, we cannot tell you how many gallons of fuel you're going to burn because we don't know what your burn rate is, your climb rate, your cruise, so that won't be there. We give you area for taking notes, and then there's your basic nav log, and it gives you everything that all you guys are used to seeing. We break out Victor Airways into their individual elements. We don't just say, hey, I'm going from Sages to HUO via Victor 489. We give you the points along Victor 489, and we embed them in your nav log. Again, we give you another section down there for your destination information, make some notes, and we give you the ability to either email this to yourself or whomever, or print it out. Okay. And here we do have the knee board size coming. We have a whiz bang pilot who works on the program that he just loves doing this stuff, and he came up with a knee board size that'll be out soon. Okay, so I see it's 10 of. I'd like to keep talking if I can, Bob.
Oh, yeah, you can have it. Yeah, we shoot for an hour, but sometimes we go over. That's okay.
That's okay. You just tell me when to shut up, and I will, because I can sit here and talk to you guys for days. So what I want to do is get into some flight planning tools. I guess I'll stop at this point. Does anybody have any questions on the briefing engine and the briefing tool that we have?
Well, I do have one question, and I had to mute several callers, so I'm going to let you get through everything also and unmute and unmute everybody all at once. But I think I'll ask one quick question that I think got glossed over. How do you create a user ID?
Okay. Boy, I really agonized over that, including it or not including it. But I could have spent an hour on that. When you log in and create an account, you're saying how do I just get an account on the system?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Bear with me 1 second. I think I may have a slide. Stand by. We're going down to the bottom.
No problem.
Oh, okay, so let me do this. Okay, can you see that now?
Yes, we can.
All right. www.1800wxbrief.com. And you're going to bring you to our homepage, our dashboard, or what we're calling. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a login page. If you already have an account, you just put in your email address, password, hit login, and you go. If you don't have one, you hit the Create New Account. Now, what that will do is it will bring you to a page, and it has literally, I want to say, a half a dozen fields for you to put information in, like your email address, telephone number, things like that, aircraft ID. And what it does, the real nice thing about this is if you have an account or a profile already existing in the Lockheed Martin Flight Service system, it will match it up. And if you have an aircraft on file, it's going to bring it in already. If you have favorite flight plans in our system already, it's going to pull them into your account. So you don't have to create any of that stuff. But when you log in or when you go to 1-800-WXBrief.com, this is what you will see. Just hit that link where I have the arrow there. It says Create New Account. And it's really easy. It takes you 5 minutes to create the account.
Okay.
And in the bottom right there is just some video links and stuff like that.
Great. Another question I have, and then I'll stop for the moment, is how many, for example, when I call the briefers directly, I drive them crazy because I'm a busy instructor with flying with different owners' aircraft. I've got, 10, 12 different tail numbers I'm throwing at them all the time, and they've got to scroll up and down. How many aircraft can I store on your website? How many airplanes am I allowed to have as profiles?
That's a good question. I don't have a definitive answer, but I had at one point up to 27 aircraft in my profile, just as testing.
Okay. So,
and another feature we do have is, and it just so happens I left it in here, we specialize with fleet operations and club operations. If, say you belong to a flying club, and that flying club has, say, half a dozen airplanes, the flying club can create an account and then give all of their members access to all of those aircraft just by putting their username or user ID in there in the aircraft. You'll see it in the profile, aircraft and favorite plan sharing. So, like I belong to the FAA Flying Club. They have several aircraft. What they do is my name is in there. I have access to all of their aircraft. So one person maintains all the aircraft, and then all of its members have access to it. I know that's a little outside of what you were getting at, but I just wanted to bring that up, that if you have a club, somebody can be the maintainer of all the aircraft. Now, the good thing is when I pull in that aircraft and the favorite flight plans for that aircraft and that user, I can use it, but I can't make any changes to the permanent profile. I can change whatever I want when it's in my system, but it does not change what the administrator of that account has done for the aircraft. So I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Oh, that's great, especially for a busy flight school that has upwards.
Oh, yeah, we have several. I was going to say we have several universities that are already using this. We've been out to several universities and set up their accounts and things like that, and they have all of their class, the school. Everybody's in there, and they all have access to the aircraft. And like I said, one person does all the maintaining on the aircraft. So that's great.
Well, and I'm also thinking of an FBO that I know that has a bunch of 172s, but they range from 172Ms all the way up to a G1000 SP. So the performance is just a little bit different across the board.
Yep, and like I said, as long as one person creates an account, and then everybody, all the other members or whomever wants to use it, all they have to do is put their name there. And then, boom, when they log in, they'll see all those aircraft. So, pretty neat stuff.
That's great.
All right. I'm going to go back up a little bit here. I want to talk about something that was, right here. Okay. All right. So, we had this next feature was born by one person's comment, and it was the gentleman from AOPA, the safety gentleman. He says, Joe, you got a really good website. It's really nice. A lot of whiz-bang things, but you don't tell me when I can go. So what do you mean? He goes, tell me when I can go. If it's not good, if it's a no-go, if it's VFR not recommended, when can I go? So we bring that back to the engineers and we let them loose, So what we've done is we've taken a flight plan. Sorry, let me get back there once. You fill out your flight plan form. What's important is you note that I've selected 5 o'clock Eastern as my departure time. I'm going to hit this evaluate button, okay? So I'm going from Nashville down to Lynchburg. No particular route of flight in there yet. But I do have an evaluate button, and that means evaluate my departure time at 5 o'clock. I hit the button, and on one screen, I can get my conditions along the route based on the terminal area forecasts and adverse conditions from departure down to destination. You'll notice that at 5 o'clock is highlighted down in the center. And it's going to start out at marginal conditions all the way across. You got some VFR mixed in there, ends up IFR. Now, if you're a VFR pilot, you're not going to make that flight. I mean, you may, but you may not. You also have adverse conditions in there. That's indicated by the hash marks. So at some point you go, geez, maybe this ain't working for me. So you look on this page, and you go, I'm sorry, I should have told you that we do color code everything, VFR, marginal, IFR, standard stuff, adverse conditions. That's what the hash marks are. Now, if you don't remember what the adverse conditions are, you can hit this what's this button, and it'll go back and just show you what the adverse conditions are. That could be overlaying your route. We can, but we just tell you that there are adverse conditions. You need to go back and do a briefing. And what's important is that I look at 5 o'clock and I go, I'm not leaving at 5 o'clock. So I look earlier than 5 o'clock, I look later than 5 o'clock, and I look down at 9 o'clock and I go, okay, it's all VFR conditions. I got some adverse conditions in there. I don't know what they are, but at least let me go to 9 o'clock. Notice I selected up there, this is not a substitute for a full briefing. This is a departure time at a glance. So what I do is I select that row, hit the select button, and it brings 9 o'clock back into my flight plan form. At this point, I hit my standard briefing, and I get the briefing, and then I'm good to go. But the point is, this gives you the ability to look at, on a page, 13 hours worth of data at a high-level overview of what the conditions are from my departure down to my destination. Okay? All right. Just a quick plan a route. We have in red, you'll see plan a route highlighted there. I'm going same departure destination. We have some additional routing options that are coming soon. But for this one, I'm going to pick Victor. I'm going to pick my low altitude airways. So I hit define routes, and it comes back with a route for me. This is the most direct route between Nashua and Lynchburg using Victor routing. If I want to, I can go back to find routes if I'm not comfortable with that. If I hit select, it brings that route back into my flight plan form. Very simple. Then if I hit my graphics container, it just gives me an overview of the route. The thing you need to be careful of on this one is we're working into the system now, but the reason you would do a full briefing is in case it put you near a TFR or an adverse condition. We don't route based on adverse conditions. What we're doing is giving you a direct Victor routing, and then obviously you go back in, do your full briefing, and then see if you got any adverse conditions along your route. We also have the ability to give you the most recently assigned ATC routes. What it does is it gives you 15 from the past 24 hours. We don't filter on altitudes or anything like that. We just dump all the data to you, and then you pick and choose the one you just pick the one you want. I'm going to pick that one. And when I select it, it's going to bring it back into my flight plan form. We have FAA preferred routes in our system. I hit find a route, and lo and behold, there are none between my departure and my destination. So it tells you that there's no pref routes between those two points. If I go back, did someone have a question? Okay,
I think somebody cleared their throat there.
Okay, no problem. So I go back to my departure and I change it to JFK and my destination to Atlanta. I hit pref routes and find those, and boom, lo and behold, there are some there. So I select one, and it brings pref routes or what the FAA has defined as their preferred routes. Coded routes, we'll do that one, and then we'll bug out of this area. JFK to Atlanta, there's a lot of coded routes. Another word for these is stereo plans. Gives you your equipment code. You say, what the heck's equipment code? We have a little box there, a hyperlink. I'll take you and give you definitions for your equipment codes. And the last thing on this one, I pick it. Boom. And then the last thing I have there is a link to your coded departure routes. It's an FAA advisory, and it gives you an explanation of what coded departure routes are all about, CDRs. And the last flight planning tool I want to talk about is the altitude optimization. Again, 95. I just love 95. So I select 95 as my altitude between that with my route. I hit that optimize button in the upper right-hand corner, and it gives me very quickly what my estimated time en route is and my fuel burn. I like staying at higher altitudes. It looks like 55 is best, but I just don't like flying down that low. For the sake of argument, I'm going to pick 75 because it does give me a little bit of better fuel and a little bit of en route time. You just gain a little bit. So you notice that 75, I hit select, and it brings it back into your altitude field at 75. Let's see. Now, Bob, if I start going into our ATC our pilot services, it'll take another 15 minutes or so. That's something that I'm going to leave that up to you if you want me to start going into these.
Well, you got 55 people listening. Nobody's dropped off, so.
Okay, I'm going to keep rolling, all right?
Up to you.
No.
I'm easy.
Okay, so, like I said, we've implemented a lot of services along with our next generation briefing and the and the flight planning tools that we implemented. We've also implemented services, ATC notifications for one. It will tell you when your flight plan has been accepted by ATC. And we'll also tell you when that flight plan has changed. We will send you an email and let you know that your route has been changed by ATC. Just a handy tool. What you do is you we'll send you the route, and then all you need to do is copy and paste that into your flight plan, hit the amend button, and you're off and running. Now you've got a new flight plan in the system. It's exactly what ATC is expecting. What is, and I know we're on a webinar, but what's the benefit of doing that? To modify or amend your flight plan to what they expect to give you. And that's to get cleared as filed when you call for a clearance. Because now you've amended the flight plan to what they were going to give you anyway. All right? So it's for your benefit, so you're not sit there and scribble your new route down like we're all used to doing. I mean, they seem to change, regularly.
I have tried to outguess ATC from Waukegan to St. Louis for 20 years, and they come up with a new one every single time. So I understand that one.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think you'd get the same thing, but anyway. But this gives you a notification. You amend the flight plan, everything is good, and then you're good to go. VFR. This is something that we've learned over the past few years, that pilots are communicating electronically, and they want to be communicating electronically. We've implemented easy activate, easy close. So you can now get a briefing online, and I'm sure the pilots, the new people coming in, they want electronic stuff. So you tell them, you get online, you get your briefing, file your flight plan. If you have a problem with it, you call flight service. When you're ready to activate that flight plan, we'll send you an email or a text message 30 minutes prior to departure. All you have to do is hit the link in there, and your flight plan is open. You don't have to call flight service. Be warned, the second you hit that easy activate button, your flight plan is open. The search and rescue ticker timer starts at that point. 30 minutes prior to your arrival time, we'll send you another email or text message, and it'll allow you to close your flight plan. All you do is touch the link, and your flight plan is closed. So you've briefed, filed, activated, and closed your flight plan without talking to anybody.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
Somebody asked, Jim Beyer asked, is there an app for, and I'm going to assume iPad, but I'll also go, or for iOS, but I'll also go with Android. Has Lockheed Martin deployed anything like that for
we have not,
tablet users?
We've consciously made the decision not to. There are too many app vendors out there. So if you have, if you have a ForeFlight app or an AVAIR app or whomever, I mean, the slide I showed maybe up, maybe the beginning, that showed all of the app vendors that we are integrated with. We get that question asked a lot. I'm in the camp that maybe we should be developing our own app for this, but that's something that's way above my pay grade. So, but at the moment, no. But we're integrated with a ton of app vendors for these services.
Right. And then the other question I have, and I'll follow up, is, does this play nicely with both Safari and Microsoft?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so if I'm on my iPad, I want to use it in the Safari, it'll work.
Yes, I've used it.
Okay.
I've used it. I mean, you have to use, scrolling left and right and stuff like that, up and down. I mean, because it's meant for, the website is meant for a laptop or a computer, but it absolutely plays nicely on an iPad or a tablet device. All right. Keep those
thanks.
Keep those questions coming. I love it. Online pilot history. We give the pilots the ability to look and see what they've done for the past 15 days. You don't know how many questions or times we've been asked, hey, how come I just can't see what I've done? We record everything for you. Whether you file a flight plan, request a NAV log, do an area briefing, do, whatever, a scheduled email briefing. And if you ever want to go back and look and see what that data looked like, you hit the view button and you can take a look at it. But again, we do this for 15 days. If maybe you're going to cover your proverbial backside and print something out that maybe you think you may have a problem with the FAA. It's, sometime you can go back in and look and see what you've done. And the FAA, and we are required to retain data for 15 days. So this is the scheduled email briefing I was talking about. Literally, just you call up the interface, select and deselect what you don't want in the briefing. It defaults to your email address. Mine's up there, or if I wanted to send it to a different email address, I could do that as well. I give it the time that I want to send the email to me. I just hit that schedule email button. I can look at it on my home page, on the pilot web, and on the right hand side is just a kind of just the front, the beginning of the email that is sent. And if you don't want to, you cancel it out. But I'm telling you, right at the time that you request it, it's going to be sitting in your inbox. I do this I typically plan the night before. If I'm leaving at, say, 8 o'clock in the morning, I'll schedule an email briefing to me at 6 a.m. Gives me a little warm fuzzy that everything's looking good. If not, that's when I call flight service and I ask them to help me out. Nice free service, adverse condition alerting service. Total paradigm shift on what we've done in briefings and flight service for 20 years. You call flight service, the typical thing is you call them, they give you data, hang up the phone. If you don't call them back, you have no idea what the conditions are or how they've changed. What we've done is if you sign up for this service, we will send you an email or a text message if an adverse condition has popped up along your route of flight. TFR, if a runway is closed, if an airport is closed, SIGNET, convective SIGNET, any of these things pop up, within 2 hours of your flight time, we'll start sending you notifications for it. You want more information? Call flight service, and I'll have all the information just as you do. Everything that you get, they get as well. You file a flight plan, you see it on our website, they see it on their specialist screens. So literally, you call up and say November 123, I just got an alert for a convective SIGNET. They can literally pull up that convective SIGNET and tell you exactly and tell you exactly what it is and how it may or may not affect you. All right. And if you have one of these SATCOM devices, SpiderTrax, Honeywell, SkyConnect, etc., we'll uplink a message to you to tell you that you have an adverse condition along your route flight. Good thing is we'll never alert you on something that's happened behind you. We only look forward. Saves you, the uplink charge or something like that. But anyway, again, with those devices I just mentioned, I mentioned the enhanced search and rescue feature. If you have one of these devices and you tell Lockheed Martin or the vendor to send us position information, we will, like I said, under the covers, we're not monitoring you actively like specialists are looking at you. Under the covers, we keep track of the position reports that you're sending in. And if you're in a 3-hour flight, typically you go down an hour in or something happens an hour into it, we're not looking for you for 3.5 hours. But if you have one of these devices and we're monitoring those positions on an active flight plan, if we stop receiving those position reports, we'll start search and rescue for you right then and there. So you could be an hour out, and within 10 minutes, we will start actively looking for you, making phone calls. We have your last position. If it's on an airport surface, then we probably stop for fuel. Forgot to tell us about it, but you stop for fuel. and we would probably call that particular airport. So anyway, very good feature. It's free, doesn't cost anybody anything. Not even your vendor, the service vendor won't charge you for this. They deem this as a service, as a safety critical item. I mean, you have to pay your subscription fees and stuff like that, but there's no additional fee for this kind of stuff. This is the pirate stuff I was talking about. AeroV Reports has developed an app, and Honeywell SkyConnect have developed an app where you, not an app, but on their in-panel mount devices, you can literally send a pirate down to flight service while you're flying. We do all the validating on it, and we send it into the National Airspace System where everybody gets to see it. But the bottom line is you now can submit pirates while flying. And AeroV Reports, I believe, is still a free app for this kind of stuff. I think they have a charge for filing flight plans and stuff like that. But for submitting pirates, I believe it is still free. And again, it's in the Apple Store, and it's AeroV Reports. You can download it or whatever. But our pirate count has gone up exponentially now that we've implemented this into our systems.
That's great. That's a lot easier than figuring out the nearest RCO and trying to get hold of somebody in Fort Worth.
Yeah, exactly. And the point is, if you have a Honeywell device or an AeroV device, I don't have a picture of the UI, but Brian, the gentleman who developed the app, he's a pilot, obviously, and he made it so it's very minimal heads down, just point, touch, and click, and everything is done like 3 or 4 points and clicks and hit submit, and boom, it's in. Because obviously if you're in bad weather, you really don't want to be heads down looking at a tablet. But the point is he's made it very easy to submit that pirate. So.
That's great. A question back on the search and rescue capability.
Mm-hmm.
Couple of folks asked, Bob French and Bill Hatfield asked, Melissa, are there any plans to integrate ADS-B into this?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We actually, our first venture into this was an ADS-B interface. And it turned out, and I have to be careful because I came from the FAA actually. It's hard to get into that fold, to get the ADS-B data and to get into that particular system. We found that we were running into too many hurdles, so we changed our total shift was, and we went to an Iridium-based service, which is not controlled by the FAA, where ADS-B, the government has a tight hold, and we were not able to get into. We're still working. The answer is no, but we are absolutely still working that avenue. But I just don't see that happening for a couple of years.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. And this was the fleet operations I talked about. And then that was our website. So I think that's a good break point. Yeah, the last thing I had was a couple reminders on what has happened over the past couple of months. Everybody knows FlightWatch. The frequency went away, and now you have to obtain your en route advisories by just calling the regular normal flight service station frequency, and the remote airport advisories went away. What has not happened yet, and what will happen October 1, that's the proposed end date for filing NAS formatted flight plans. The FAA really wants to get off of NAS formatted flight plans, and I think it's the right thing to do with all of the technology now and the capabilities of RNAV and things like that. Your NAS flight plan form is just not strong enough or powerful enough to accommodate that. So there is a shift now. They've asked us to start implementing changes and things like that for the ICAO flight plan. So this, I think, is coming sooner rather than later. We've been talking about it. FAA's been talking about it for several years, but there is a huge push to get this done now. So. And on our website, if you go to the flight plan form, there are little cameras. You click on them, and they give you really nice tutorials of the form, and there's just cameras embedded all over the place. So you just click on them. We got a guy out in Prescott, Eric. He puts these together for us, and he is just stellar when it comes to explaining. He's a seasoned pilot, and like I said, this has been built by pilots, and he really explains ICAO flight plan forms. And so tell your students not to be afraid of these things. There's nothing really scary about a flight plan. The equipment field and, field 18, your other information field can get a little squirrely. But once you have that nailed, it's just like any other form. So.
Okay. All right. Well, anything else you want to bring up? Anything you wish we as instructors are telling our students? How's that for a setup question?
Yeah. We get a lot of comments from pilots when we're doing our site visits, and we do AOPA, our regional events and stuff. And, we'll ask, hey, you filing your VFR flight plans? And they're like, no, I'm just going up to poke holes in the sky and blah, blah. I said, well, if there's one thing I want you to do I would like you to do, is encourage pilots, student pilots, to file flight plans. True story. My friend out of Atlantic City went up like normal. Just, hey, I'm going up, poking holes in the sky. He went up one day, did not file a flight plan, and we never found them. Chances are he went over the water a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of water out by Atlantic City. Had we had a flight plan on my friend, we may have been able to at least know. We would have known at least where he was flying. And we would have started looking much sooner. I'm not trying to throw the scare tactic in there, but the point is, filing a flight plan is a very valuable, powerful thing to have as a backup when you're flying, especially if you're flying by yourself. So.
Point taken. John Kutcher asks, does this work for SFRA flight plans?
You can file into the SFRA. It just has to be an IFR flight plan. You can put a VFR altitude in there, and that triggers the controller ATC that you want to be on a VFR flight plan. You cannot file into the freeze on our website yet. That you still have to call flight service and get the waiver and stuff like that. But into and out of the SFRA is absolutely fine.
Okay. And will this work for, say I'm in the Bahamas, will this work for defense?
Absolutely. Yep. We have letters of agreement with certain areas, and the Bahamas are within that, within those LOAs. You file into and out of foreign, our airspace. We will notify the appropriate people, your defense VFR flight plans, customs, and all that kind of stuff. So, yep, absolutely will work.
Perfect. And then Jim Beyer gives us a great reminder. He suggests, and you mentioned it too, but it's a good point, and I'm not good about this. When I'm with a student pilot, we typically open the flight plan after takeoff with the exact takeoff time. He suggests just before takeoff, which I think is a great idea, because if you take off in the dark, say, some airport out in the country, and you end up in the trees, at least people know where to start looking.
Yes. That's the whole idea. Activate, file your flight plan, activate the flight plan. We now know at least where you started.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then we go from that point. Instead of going 360 degrees all over the place, now we have a line that we can start looking. So, anyway.
Yep. Well, I've got to say this was a great presentation and really appreciate it. For those of you that joined us late or would like to see it again, it's recorded and it'll be up on the NAFI website. A couple of folks have asked, this program, would these slides be available to somebody if they asked, Joe? Is there any way they can check with Lockheed's offices and see if this presentation is available?
Unfortunately, no. We've had this conversation with our corporate folks, and because things change as much as they do, they would just prefer that we did not make these available.
Okay.
And I apologize for that. And I don't typically give out my email, but that's my email address right there. First of all, if you have comments on the website itself, the login page, you'll see a contact us button. If you have a general comment about things, we read everything pilots submit. Put it in there. If you have something that you want to direct directly to me, send it to me. I don't care. I read everything that pilots send to me. It's just this is my passion. I hope you can tell. Send me information, and I'll be happy to get it to the right people if it's a question I can't answer. Okay.
Great. That's great. Appreciate it. And again, thank you for your time. Thanks for taking the evening to talk to us. And you've gotten some nice compliments on the chat room here. So I'll pass those along. And
okay. And Bob, if there's questions that you have received electronically and you want to get them to me so we can answer them, I would be happy to do that. All right.
No problem. We'll forward those on to you. So, again, I want to thank everybody for participating and hanging in there with us. Look forward to seeing you again next month, third Wednesday of the month. It's cold out there. Dress appropriately when you fly and pre-flight. Make sure your students understand that. So fly safely, and we'll see you all again next month. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.